Yeah, good. I'm sorry about that.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I
no,
felt that when
wasn't
he
you.
called
Wasn't you.
a lot of brash, but you bring out the emotion, brother.
Right, right, but no, but if you platform, just gay bashing, for example, or Jew bashing, or any of these protected groups, you get pulled within half an
We
hour.
are we so beyond that? Aren't we like if you want to have the freedom to think, right? Just have your own thoughts that aren't people's bedrooms and like people's politics and everything. You should either, if you want to hear it, you respect it, and if you don't agree with it, keep it to yourself. Don't be an idiot. Don't be like calling people like like the easiest way to like make enemies is like these libtards. Some of them are libtards, but you don't call them that. You know what I mean? Just like there's some redneck MAGA nuts. You know what I mean? You don't come right off the bat, you Trumpist. You know what I mean? You see what people have to say. You got to remember, a lot of them have no idea that it's all a sham. So even if they're partially stringed puppets, they're still stringed puppets. They're always in the pantomime, right?
Well, without name calling, there would be no politics. If there was no categorizing your enemies into these caricatures.
They said Jefferson was a half squaw. You know what I mean? I was like, "Whoa, how dare you!" In like 1800 and something. Man, I would to me that would be my you win. You get my vote for that. You know what I mean? I know that you have. Look, the way they're throwing it at you as an insult. I know you've. That's why I like Trump in the first term. I was like, oh my God, they all hate him. Fox News hates him. I love this guy.
Yeah,
But
that was good
it was
sound.
all a
Look,
show,
it
right?
was a
It was all
great.
WWE. It
It
was
was a
just such
great.
a high production level. They don't even tell you that there's ticket sales or that they're coming to town because it's always on and you're always invited.
Yeah, it was a really great sales pitch. You have to give him that, and it worked because there was a need that was created for somebody who wasn't going to be what Limbaugh called conservatives, and of course they were opposed to the radical left, and there was nothing there, and then Trump shows up and he filled in that void. But did he deliver on any of those promises, or was he just part of the show? Well, obviously,
I mean, he took us out of the Paris Climate Accord, which me and you would disagree with, which is fine. But there was a time from March of 2017 until I guess mid 2020 that I did not see one chemtrail plane, one overcast sky for like 2.5 years, and I found that very strange. You know what I mean? It almost gave me like that the climate accord, whatever they had put in the fuel tanks, from him canceling it in January, it made its way out of the fuel system by March, and they never added it back in. I don't know, but then that's my opinion. I have no proof. I can't tell you here's what they put in the fuel, and look, here's another sample, and it's not. I only get my hunches, but we got to go by that. Sometimes you got to go with your gut. You definitely, like you said, you can't go with what they say. You know what I mean? You can't go. We'd still be getting COVID tests every week up our nose, anally, whatever, Vax Dash, right? There's a new variant out. Oh, call them up.
no,
I tell them I'll be waiting with my
you
sleeve
said
up.
that you didn't see any contrails for 2 years. Um, how is that possible when contrails form whenever airplanes go up 12,000 feet?
Well, I see the planes that have a little tiny line sometimes, and it goes away within, like, let's say, from my vantage point, 10 feet behind the plane. Even though I know it's probably like, 400 yards or something. But when you look at the plane looks like a matchbox car, and the line behind it looks like a couple of inches, from your perspective. And like today, there's just tic tac toe all over the sky. And I'm telling you, for like I posted it on Facebook. People said you're right. I haven't seen line in the skies in months. You know what I mean? And then when Biden became president, it was like 2 months later, boom. Now we have these gray skies every day. I don't know. You know what I mean? I do know they talk about dimming the sun and they're going to spray aerosols and everything. They can't just whip it out. They had to have done testing on it. That's what we lived through. We went through the practice run. Now they're just going to come in your face and say, "Oh yeah, now we're going to do it." They're admitting what
Fascinating
they
take.
did for 2 decades.
I
I don't know. That's me. I could be wrong, man. I am
But
not an
I'm just saying,
infallible
if
human.
you're
I
gonna
have been
say
wrong a
if you're gonna
lot.
say though if you're gonna say that you didn't see contrails for 2 years, then I'm wondering what kind of air traffic there is because the fact of it is, if you
Well, also COVID, they cut down all the flights too. That could be a reason, right? You know what I mean? And 2020, there was no planes really flying after January. They were, oh, we're freezing the whole world. But I'm going to say in 2017, 2018, after that March came around, yeah, I noticed a lot of blue sky. I even write it on Facebook. Has anybody seen any puffy cotton clouds in like the past year? And people would be like, no, during like Obama's presidency. It was a big thing for me. You know, I was poor, man. Sky was at least 50% of my entertainment, man.
very, very interesting. Okay, well, I'm still not convinced, but we're going to do some
I
extensive
don't, you know,
debates
I
on the
don't care.
topic later.
You're still my friend, and I respect you. It's not like you have to think like you must fit into my cookie cutter or you are faulty. No, like I said, I could be wrong. I don't know, but that's what I saw.
Yeah, well, it's funny that, I mean, we can give each other leeway, but then in the blue pill world of politics, it's like, oh, you don't agree with my side, you're therefore a terrorist, or you're therefore an oppressor.
Exactly. Exactly right. And
And
it's so blatant. And I can't believe that people don't even see that it has to be a freaking WWE production that it's so the contradictions are in each other's face. Both sides contradict each other. And they don't call or they call it out and it doesn't get any attention.
yep,
So it's obviously set up to rob or rouse, right? It's the percolation.
yes.
That's at what keeps us going. It's at, like the movie Catfish. You know what the movie? You remember the movie Catfish that they based the TV show on? They had like the retarded guy, and he knew at the end like his wife was online pretending to be a young girl. And he's like, sometimes you got to put a catfish in with all the cod because it keeps it fresh. The catfish irritates the cod when they're in the holding tank, and without it, they'll die. So that's how he viewed it. That's how he viewed knowing that his wife was scheming people online. Is that it keeps his marriage alive?
Fascinating. Hey, 737 asks, is this Joey Diaz?
No, no. But I met Joey Diaz. He used to have that bar. He had a bar for really bad alcoholics. These people, I tell you, they got to have at least a 750 milliliter of liquor in them by 7:30 a.m. or they're shaking. So one day I show up to the bar late, and this line of zombies is around the corner, and I couldn't pour it fast enough into. I had to funnel these people. They were shaking. I had to have a gasoline funnel. I was pouring the Jack Daniels in them, rubbing their cheeks, and you'd watch them come back to life. Is that a good Joey Diaz or what?
I don't know, but 737 says, I love that dude. You do sound like him. So 737 would know. And
I'm
yes.
going to say that, like, whatever this whole matrix is, when I went to L.A., the only people who were nice to me in all of L.A. was Joe Rogan and Paulie Shore and Bobby Lee, bro. The rest of that place was such a closed-door society. I feel so bad. It's like a prostitution factory. If you have a kid from the middle of the country, he's like, I'm going to take a bus to L.A. and I'm going to make it as a store. Man, you're going to be prostituting yourself in 2 weeks, man. There's no opportunity. None. It's all a lie.
You said Joe Rogan treated you well?
Yeah. They put me on at the belly room. I shook his hand. This is 2005. But what my point is that somebody with no resume, no agent, walked into your club, struck a conversation, and got a spot on the stage that night. Not that I got paid. I didn't. But Bobby Lee opened up for me, man. He was the act before I went on in the belly room. That's that's bragging rights alone.
Yep.
And I just mean I met Mitzi Shore. I met them all. They were like a real place. But like the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory, or God, I can't remember the other one.
Let me ask you this.
Might have been the
Pauly Shore. Is it
They
possible
won't
that
even
Pauly
they won't
Shore
even open the door for you.
is it possible that Pauly Shore may have been repackaged as Anthony Weiner? The resemblance is uncanny.
Yeah, it could be cousins. Could be cousins. If you ask Cliff High, they're all in the Khazarian Mafia. You ever listen to Cliff High?
No, 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 but I'm sure somebody listening has.
Listen, like I say, I take it in from everybody. I don't necessarily. You can't believe everybody because everybody contradicts everybody. But when a truth shines through like a ray of light, and you remember who you heard it from, and you can tie it in with other things, you get a better picture. You know what I mean? It's so complex. Listen, think about it. If we're right, and they are pulling a sham, and it's like the greatest Truman Show done on the whole world, right? Like, how freaking complex of a monster is it to keep it going? This is like well beyond like the most intelligent of intelligence. It would make you think that of course they have UFOs and flying machines and time travel because if they could pull this together, they have to be masterminds, right?
I think so. I think that it's very important to keep in mind that the knowers rule over the believers because they know more than us. A lot of people want to downplay the elite. They're just greedy, they're just bad, they're just privileged. No, there's a knowledge disparity. We're the village, and they're the elders, and the world outside of our Truman Show is probably advanced by a couple of centuries ahead of where we are.
Easily. And definitely if we're on an infinite plane, they got us thinking we live on a ball. And like we are going to get locked into slavery for the quote unquote controllable climate of our little puddle, right? When we don't even represent 1% of the total minerals, this, that, the other thing, blah, blah, blah. They could literally break the firmament, tap it in, suck all our pollution out, and pump us with brand new air like any minute they want to because, that's how much of ants in an ant farm we are. Who knows?
You mean they
Who
could just
knows?
clean the aquarium at any point? Clean the aquarium.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what they say in Jewishness theory, right? They say you don't want to be the filter fish. That's the fish by the filter.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Come on, you gotta admit that's funny. That's old Jackie Mason, man. The filter fish. Oh man. Oh my God.
The filter fish.
Forget it,
Awesome.
man. Now I'm showing you guys how old I am.
No, no, no.
Listen, I don't have anything streaming on Infinite Plane. Are we streaming?
We're streaming on. Oh, you know what? We're on the backup. We're on the George Radio channel, and most people are on right now on Twitch and D Live. Let me turn on the Infinite Plane Radio one again. That was the one that I had to remove the video because the first caller said things that would get us taken down by Snowflake Tube.
Yeah, and I try to do that. I try to, bro, I drop f bombs like crazy. It's
It's
just,
not the F bombs. It's the
yeah, there's even like appalling stuff to, yeah. There's keywords.
yeah.
Like I
There's
said with my
keywords,
thing,
sounds. Yeah, certain sounds.
I said Tim Pool in my chat, and they freaking edited me because, like I said, this is their golden cow, right? He's got to be one of the biggest streams on YouTube,
Oh,
right?
oh yes, yes. Tim Pool has been around forever since Occupy Wall Street, Zuccotti Park, and he's just been live nonstop, guard railing for the dissidents on the right. Basically, I mean, he's kind of just to me, yeah, he's a fixture. He's an institution, and they have to protect all of them. And definitely, I think if you,
Your channel is George TV News.
well, this is the thing. Just to explain, when I was dealing with Stalker and
Yeah, I
George
remember.
News. I created George Radio because I picked up 5,000 subs from his followers, and I was
Nice.
and I was doxing him to his followers. So that channel is just an old sock account.
That's awesome. It's great to have him now, right?
Yes,
You could whip him out. George Radio, you have 780 subscribers.
yes, that's the
Is
one.
this the one?
Yep.
All right, I'm going. I'm going now. Boom, live. Look at that. Wait, let me sub. I subbed. So now because sometimes you go live and I don't get it because I didn't have all the IPS channels, and it's good that you have them. But
That one's a disposable, but the main one isn't because it has like five other accounts attached to it. But on the 19th of this month, the two strikes expire. So as of the 19th
wow.
of this month, we're like in the clear. But it's been
I'm still shocked about the way they took my $38 or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm like, really? Is it really that bad? You all brag about how awesome you are and this and that, and now you control the whole internet and your app store and this and that, and you're going to go get people who've literally slaved over videos, hundreds of videos that get sometimes 100 views. You know what I mean? And then that adds up at a penny a week or whatever, and you're going to take it all. It's
oh,
so sad.
do you know what YouTube Red costs right now If you don't want those
Yeah,
annoying
I pay
ads,
for it.
that's just too
I
much.
pay.
They
It's
doubled it.
like $13.
No, it's gone up. It's 18.99 now.
Well, I'm gonna have to cancel it then, because I'm gonna have to tell them if they're picking on people like you. That's what I pay for.
I don't
I
want to pay
pay
for it
for to watch
because yeah,
like you.
they'll cancel my account and then I'll still be billed for it. That happened to me before.
I just can't believe this low, low, low. Let me ask you a question. Did you go to college, Tim?
I went to colleges. I had the Montgomery GI Bill, so I went to a few different places. I just sort of I
And
went.
you got degrees.
I got my. I have a lot of credits that I never really bothered. As soon as I got into
That's
the,
it. That's how I know you're smart. I know you're smart because you really realize that for the pain in the ass it is, it's really not worth it.
you know what? I was just like thinking, I'm going to spend the entire GI Bill and take the courses I want to take and take the different majors I want to take. So I was able to study different things. I wanted to study film. I want to study journalism. I want to study art.
I'm gonna sum to you guys a couple of decades of knowledge in a few sentences on what I learned in comedy. All right. What I learned in comedy is you'd meet all types of people, right? Basically, the ones that were the least educated and depended the most on bullshitting people on the fly or working with their hands or having contact with people all the time. These were naturally brilliant speakers. Like an example would be like DeStefano, if you've heard of the comedian Chris DeStefano. His dad, I think, was the original dad that was the comedian DeStefano. And he was just like a guy in the neighborhood, man. You left your bike out, he would steal it. 100% true story. If you left your 10 speed outside of the bodega to get a sandwich, you'd come out, and DeStefano would be riding it to sell it to get a hit. You know what I mean? That's like, and when he became a comedian, he was great because he had that. But then you meet other people in comedy, right? That like I have a degree in communications, and I have a degree in engineering, and I have a degree in this, and they are the worst public speakers ever. Kind of like I would sum it up as RFK. Like RFK Jr. might have all the qualifications to be the greatest president in the world. I don't know. But he is definitely has no qualifications to be a brilliant speaker or entertaining.
It depends.
And
Some say it adds gravitas. That it and it in a way, and he is eloquent. He is a lawyer. He's highly intelligent. But you know,
but you can't get over his voice. It's cursed, bro. That's it. If he doesn't have a, a microphone plugged into his voice box and a voice changer with like a module made for like a program used for people with throat cancer, and then it gives it takes away the fry in his voice because he's not. I wouldn't even say it's fry. His voice has like a frozen wet turkey thrown into hot oil. That's the fry in his vocal tension. You know what I mean?
the condition emerged when he was 42. Interesting. The same age that his
He
father
says
was.
from heroin use.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Well, listen, that's what it was claimed. That's what I have in my brain. I don't know where I said it fully. But yeah, that's what the story is. That
Wait a
he was
minute. Then
probably injected in his throat on the main vein and your carotid artery or whatever. You inject it in there when your arm veins get too small.
is that
You
why
know what I
is
mean?
that why he became such a vocal
And it
anti-vaxxer?
numbs out your numbs out your vocal cords because that's the closest place the opiates go to.
It could be that's the
You
reason
know
why
what I mean? Like
he
if you
became
keep
an
injecting
anti-vaxxer
in
as a
your
result
ankle, it
because
might get necrosis and turn black. You know what I mean? Because it goes to sleep so many times.
he had such a bad experience with a needle. He's like, I'm totally going to be against all needles from now on. And
Yeah, I've always been against that. Thank God. I thank God I was a big wimp because that's one of the reasons probably I wasn't a smack junkie. If I wasn't scared of needles, I might have tried it. You know what I mean? No, no, thank you. I pretty much stopped at weed.
awesome. Well, look, appreciate the call very much. I'm going to go ahead and turn
Listen, I
on.
love you, channel, IPS fam. Good night, everybody.
Awesome. And this was Joey Diaz. Is that the name? No, no.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, man. I used to open up the bar at 5:30 in the morning. All right, good night, guys.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Have a great night. All right. Okay, I have someone at the door here. I'll be right back in about 30 seconds. I think it's just security checking in. Since 1960 Okay, we're back. Thank you for your patience. And I went ahead and turned on the main channel, so we should have another influx of people joining in. A lot of you here have been hanging on. We had a couple of mild interruptions, some of them technical, some of them just tactical, but we are still live, and if you listen on the archives and the replays, you get the entire thing all stitched together. So the main topic tonight is this shooter in Panama who is described as an elderly American. So he's in Panama, but he's an American. Elderly American arrested in Panama after gunmen filmed him shooting eco protesters who were blocking the highway. Now, I haven't seen videos, I've seen some still shots. My general take on these things, fake until proven real. I know I've been a staunch advocate for locking up climate change activists. I've even said that it would be probably the right thing to do specifically because they want to lock us down. And that I'm totally fine with them dragging them off the roads. And now I'm going to second guess myself. Should I be hypercritical of these guys now that somebody's going to say, he's going to say he got radicalized by talk radio? That's what's going to come out. Like on Friday the 13th, the day of jihad, global jihad, you had this story come out of a landlord who went and stabbed a Muslim tenant, a 6-year-old, and his mother because of the radio. They said he heard stuff on the radio about Muslims going on a jihad and he went and killed people. So there's your free speech. There's your disease X. People living in a bubble on disease X on Twitter, getting radicalized, acting out in the world, just like the shooter in Maine was in a quote bubble, radicalized by Elon Musk and a few other right wing talking heads, Don Trump Jr., for example. So he naturally goes and shoots up a bowling alley. So they're going to say, oh, this guy was radicalized by podcasts that said that climate change is a hoax. But look at this shot. This is a 77-year-old, I believe he's an attorney. Like, you know, Trump was really in love with his mugshot. He thought he looked really like this picture here. Because Trump's like, I look like Magnum, you know, Zoolander. He thinks he looks like a badass, and his fans do. This guy definitely does. And I don't know if this is real. I haven't seen the video, but you can actually see the shell right here up by his head. I mean, look at this shot here. He's got to be, this has got to be making Alec Baldwin jealous. Look at that. This just looks too staged and too perfect. Has anyone seen the video? Like, do we have footage of this guy shooting the environmentalists? Which again, this is scoring 2 points for World War Zero. Now, if you didn't know, World War Zero is about cutting our carbon footprints in half by 2030. This is something that's spearheaded by Skull and Bonesman John Kerry and the Terminator. Your carbon footprint is the total carbon dioxide released due to your individual activities. Your household's carbon footprint is the total carbon dioxide released by your home and all of the people that live there. Now, from that perspective, and I've said this about the founder of Earth Day, the unicorn killer, Ira Einhorn, who composted his girlfriend. And of course, Earth Day, founded by a guy who composted his girlfriend, makes perfect sense. So from the perspective of the greenies who are trying to cut down on our big carbon, what this man did is actually, you could say, a sacrifice for Gaia, and totally worth it. Not to mention, his own carbon footprint will be minimized as he'll be locked up. He'll be locking down, which is what the Gaia cult wants us all to do. Going through some comments. Okay, good. Everyone's flooding into this new channel. Ollie Goering says he looks like he wouldn't hurt a fly. Gene Rosen's fat brother, says Robert Bell. P-Trippa103 says Maine Shooter's Manifesto was released right away. Yeah, I saw they had something about a note. And then we have the Nashville shooter Aiden Hale / Audrey Hale with their manifesto describing how they wanted to kill crackers. Privileged crackers. And I'm like, you are a privileged cracker because you went to that school. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then she was using expletives that you wouldn't use to describe people if you were a trans person. So none of this person's manifesto makes any sense. It was probably written by the person who released it, Steven Crowder, to distract everybody from the fact that he puts his junk on his producer Jared's head in front of everybody and they have to act like it's normal. Do we have any evidence that Steven Crowder didn't write Audrey Hale's manifesto? All right, let's see what we have here. The HBIC says this is the first time I've even hearing of this shooting. Yeah, this is new actually. This was just reported today. Elderly American arrested in Panama after he shot a couple eco protesters dead. But look at this shot. That is just so clear. It's so high def. Now, the Nashville manifesto wasn't released. It was leaked, and it was leaked by Steven Crowder. And this is not a coincidence because the Nashville shooting is a right wing Sandy Hook. It's target marketed at the right wing. And as such, it's only being really propagated among that side. And they're the ones who were trying to get the manifesto. And they're like, why were they trying to hide it? Oh, it turns out she's a lefty and she wants to kill Republicans and conservatives and white people. So it's this anti white screed. But again, it doesn't make a lot of sense considering the shooter. But this is a psyop that the right wing is outraged about. The left doesn't care because it was one of theirs who did the shooting. Just like when Nick Cruz shot up the school, the right didn't care because that's one of theirs. They're like, oh, it's mental illness. But this has been a trend for like the last year to have the shooters coming from the left. Okay, let's continue here. Exalt says Donald eats his burgers without the top bun for more protein and taste, he says. McDonald's burgers, he just takes off the top. Exalt says that looks like Trump. Nicotrama says third time is a charm. Yeah, this is going to be fine. This stream is going to continue until I have to leave. So we're going to talk about this. This is definitely a win, right? Is anybody saying this is a bad thing that he shot these? I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying from the eco-fascist side, the protesters, the people who hate mankind, the misanthropists who want to shut down human freedom because it's not sustainable, who don't want you to breathe, who want to lock you down, are they mad about these dead protesters? We'll get some more information about that as it comes out. I got this message from Mr. Trustworthy about George Carlin's big club reference. Notice he didn't say it's a big club and we're not in it. He said it's a big club and you're not in it because he is in it and his audience is not. We were speaking about Duper's Delight earlier, and I think that might be an example of it. JT says the word gunman has been weaponized. Well, what we had in Maine was an example of the future of lockdowns for mental illness viruses, mind viruses. So it's not just a physical virus. Now a mind virus can precipitate lockdowns because they're tracing it. They're saying the reason why he shot these places is because he read these tweets. He caught this mind virus. Thinks 101 says they're totally expendable to themselves. Yes. We got this interesting little report from Restless Bear. Help, I'm at the airport during their aviation disaster training drill day. It actually says it here. 2023 aviation disaster exercise. And it has a triangle. If you're looking at the picture, I'll try to zoom in. It has a triangle with a plane in the middle of it, and it's cracking. So it looks kind of like the all-seeing eye, but it's an exploding plane. It's kind of funny, but ominous at the same time. And it says here, not a real emergency. This is an exercise. That's surreal. You might as well just leave it up. The Jacksonville International Airport will be conducting an aviation disaster exercise on 11/8, beginning at 10 to 2. These drills are just rehearsals for something that's going to happen later. It's foreshadowing. It's practice. It's rehearsal. It's training your crisis actors. But I like this. This is not a real emergency. This is an exercise. I want to leave this on the screen. CNN should just have this at the bottom. On the news ticker. I kind of do already. Like when I look at the news, I just think, oh, this is not real. This is an exercise. Anyway, Psyoptical says, what a joke. They run drills for hoaxes. Yes, they stage drills and rehearsals for staged events. You got to practice to do the fake stuff, which is what you do with movies. You rehearse, and then you fake it. And you fake it really well, you make a lot of money. Restless Bear says, it's supposed to be going on between 10 and 2. I've seen none of the signs. It's nice to see a picture of a burning, broken plane right before my flight. Why would they put that on the sign? Exactly. Exactly. Why would they put that right there? That's, to me, that's a subtle form of terrorism. Okay, let's continue. Going through the notes. This is a fascinating one. Pete Trippa posted this today. This has to do with the Lamborghini in a movie, The Wolf of Wall Street. The wrecked 1989 25th anniversary Lamborghini Countach from the 2013 movie Wolf of Wall Street is coming up for sale and could fetch millions. Now, the thing is, it was on the screen for 3 minutes and 11 seconds. So, what can we extrapolate from this? I would say mostly the 311 Wolf of Wall Street. What do you think? I suspect that there's something to do with maybe some kind of a financial crisis. There's something in it. And who was the Wolf of Wall Street in the movies? It was Leonardo DiCaprio, who's the face of the Titanic, which is a metaphor for the sinking of the West, financial and otherwise. And he was the face of Don't Look Up, which is about Earth as the Titanic about to be steered into a comet by greed and capitalism. Again, same exact theme. So I'm suspecting there's something of a tie-in with 311 and Wolf of Wall Street. If anybody has any insights on that, but it's just fascinating little piece of the big puzzle there. Shelter in place order, chemical plant explosion in Shepherd, Texas. Now it's very dramatic. It's a huge cloud. When I'm looking at something like this, I'm thinking this is a psyop. This is a spectacular, visual, psychological operation, impossible to ignore. Was there really a chemical plant explosion? Probably not. My guess is this is more of like what we saw after Palestine, Ohio. And think about this too, how earlier in the year we were talking about the toxic airborne event and White Noise in Netflix, the movie White Noise, which was about a toxic airborne event, which then happened for real there in Ohio, which is, quote, the heart of it all, which is the slogan of Ohio. I took the train wreck to be symbolic of America's, you could say, our, like the heart of it all, and the trains could be like veins and arteries. So the train wreck was like a heart attack. America had a heart attack. It's bloated. The metaphor was pretty much, and this was what the media played off of as well, was that this was because of greed, capitalism. They said this is because of Trump. He deregulated because they want to make more money and they made it unsafe. We had this big event. But this is out there in Palestine. And then Trump kicks off his campaign in Waco. We have all this apocalypse stuff attached to it. Netflix puts out Waco, American Apocalypse. But now we're looking at Palestinians and the train wreck out there. And there might be a correlation between the heart of it all concept of Ohio and Israel being something of, like maybe there's some kind of a parallel here. Cubstar says Margot Robbie was in The Wolf of Wall Street too. Okay, there's another one. Margot Robbie, Whore of Babylon, Barbie, or Barbie Land. And Barbie is an icon, an idol, and it is the emblem or the idol of the new version of the goddess that this cult worships. They do worship what they call the Whore of Babylon in the Bible, but it's just symbolism they appropriate. But it's just Isis, but it's a new version, and they call her Babylon. And it's basically what you saw in the Barbie movie, Barbie feminism. Ken neutered. At the very beginning, the young girls smashing the heads of babies on the rocks so they could join Barbie Land, opening a portal to Barbie Land into the world and releasing this. Well, that's like Pandora's box. I did a breakdown of the Barbie movie. I watched it, and it has this repeated theme of this, Barbie land entering into the real world. It's similar to Pandora's box, and they're trying to put Barbie back into the toy box because she won't go back in. Similar story, and if you look at the background on Pandora's box and how that's been used to represent something else, you can kind of see it all comes down to with this Barbie movie, the introduction of a new concept of the goddess, no longer virginal, no longer this obedient meek, but now it's this well independent, Barbie land. She doesn't. Men are superfluous. In fact, at the end of the movie, Barbie actually has transformed into a real woman, and the last word in the movie is gynecologist, because she asks to see one. Meanwhile, Ken is still just a nub. The men are still Ken dolls into the future in this movie, but it's all code. It's all just symbolic, and the subtext is essentially again this Barbie feminism represents this new age, which is why they began with this 2001 Space Odyssey like opening, but instead of a monolith, it's a giant Barbie. And that's when the babies are all sacrificed. I mean, infanticide is so hot right now. Salty says she's also Harley Quinn, who was a psychiatrist who went mad. Now, I'm glad you brought this up because we're talking about the harlot. And that was Harlequin was one of the things that came up here because a little background, Margot Robbie was in the movie Babylon. And the movie Babylon is based on the book Hollywood Babylon. And Hollywood Babylon was written by a Thalemite, occultist, Satanist filmmaker who consciously was putting that symbol out there. He wrote this book saying that the new god for this new age was going to be presented through the pageantry to be presented through the movies, through these Scarlet Woman archetypes. Anyway, Margot Robbie played Babylon. Then she did Barbie. She did Suicide Squad, which is also interesting because Jack Parsons was in his own Suicide Squad. But I was thinking about this archetype because the new Joker movie, Joker 2, is about Harlequin and Joker. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's a different actress. I think Lady Gaga is playing Harlequin, and of course, if you look at her roles and everything else, it's all the same symbolism. They bring out these goddess idols all the time. Okay, let's continue. Shelter in Place. Again, this is in Shepherd, Texas. Let me see what it was. I'm probably going to blame capitalism or Chinese space lasers. Smoke visible for miles. Quite a display. Good to know. I mean, I'm curious as to how they're going to fake the nukes when they finally pull that off. I'm pretty sure Christopher Nolan provides a lot of the footage for it. Colonel Maga says, I've never seen so many explosions, fires, derailments in my life than we've had in the last 3 years. Well, do you remember when we had the derailment? Everybody was saying that nobody was talking about it. Everybody on the right was saying nobody's talking about the environmentalists aren't talking about what happened in Palestine, Ohio. Where's Greta on Palestine, Ohio? They were all conspicuously silent. Nobody was talking about this major ecological disaster, except the people on the right who don't believe in climate change. They waited a few days, and this is by design, because within about a few 5 or 6 days, it was like a big story, and everybody who's against climate change were suddenly involved in this discussion about we need to do something to save the planet. They dragged him into the conversation, and then Greta comes out. Then the left comes out, and they say, yeah, it happens all the time. And following that, every other day on CNN, another derailment, another derailment, another derailment. It's Trump's fault. I was like, wow, suddenly there's 1,500 derailments a year, or a day. Like there's a ridiculous number of derailments. We've never heard of these things, but now they're being hyped up. But it only lasted for a couple of weeks. When is the last time you've heard of a derailment? Same thing with those shootings. There was a spate of shootings. Someone rang a doorbell, wrong doorbell, gets shot. Parks in the wrong driveway, gets shot. Goes in the wrong car, gets shot. And they said it's the Wild West. People are just shooting each other everywhere. And no, that kind of went away too. It's like, what's going on here? Do they just realize it's futile, that the public attention span can't really hang on to this stuff anyway? Elephant Tusk says the censorship is hardcore tonight. Yeah, we've had a number of interruptions, but we're going to be fine. Anyway, shelter in place, not because of a gunman with a mind virus, but because of a chemical plant exploding. Okay, let's see what else. People are asking, was it sabotage? I think it's theater. I think it's a psychological operation, theater, and it's meant to. We'll see where it goes, but my eyes are on this one. Real or fake? This is problematic. You know the baby in the oven story? Well, this story's been widely published and it's aroused a lot of strong feelings. This is from jpost.com. Whether this is an account of an incident which has been mistakenly misrepresented or by people who are upset that its veracity is even being questioned. So, this is the thing. How dare you question this dead baby? Is kind of like how some people are taking it. But then when you look at how these stories are spread, it's like, well, if you're not questioning it, then you're just gullible or you're not paying attention to the contradictions. This is also by design, this whole confusion thing. Exalt didn't hear about the baby in the oven. I'm surprised. Yeah, controversy surrounding a report of the Israeli baby found burned alive in an oven. In an interview with the BBC, a senior Hamas leader denied that the terrorists who breached the barrier fence and carried out a massacre had killed any civilians, women, or children, but only targeted soldiers. And he goes on to deny something about this baby being cooked in the oven. These are horrifying and unimaginable testimonies from the massacre in the Gaza Strip, and still, even today, there are those who doubt their credibility, and they do so while taking advantage of specific testimonies that have no basis. Denying massacres is in the interest of Hamas and supporters and other hostile elements. Inaccurate testimony has the potential for great harm. So they're going on about how just regular people commenting and not believing is actually creating problems because, of course, if we don't believe it and it's real, or if we believe the wrong spin, it changes everything. Apparently you not believing the right way is going to cause World War III. But anyway, the story was about an Israeli baby found in the oven, and it circulated for a full day. And I think there was difficulty on tracking it down because it was kind of one of these things where this person says, "We saw a little baby in the oven. We have not found any more references. They only rely on other sources." It's like a hearsay thing, is my point. It's hearsay. JT says, unbelievable. Yeah, I think it's mostly hearsay. And if you look at the picture, they have a photo of a bloody footprint and a teddy bear because they couldn't find a baby. Like, just show us the evidence. But what's the thing with dead babies? It's been this entire summer, ever since Barbie came out and all the babies' heads were being dashed. And then you have the 33-year anniversary of the incubator babies, the 40 decapitated babies, and then this cooked baby. What's going on with this? Okay, here we have an oven baby witness. Let's take a listen. Now, just because he's reading it into a microphone doesn't mean it's true. Let's not forget the Naira testimony regarding the babies pulled out of incubators, a story that was later debunked. So we do have testimony, but again, this is tantamount to hearsay, and it's like the original witness can't be traced. They can't find something tangible. I mean, it's insane that we have to rely on second and third hand accounts. It's just not reliable. That's why I say you have to suspend judgment. If you're not skeptical, you're going to be susceptible to all kinds of other people's interests. You'll be a puppet. This is someone talking about the baby in the oven.
I saw in my own eyes a woman who was pregnant, 4 months pregnant. She was in a little village, a little kibbutz.
Okay, it's story time. This is like a 2.5 minute story. We'll go ahead and give it a few seconds.
Came into her house in front of her kids. They opened up her stomach. She was pregnant. They opened up her stomach. took out the baby and stabbed the little tiny baby in front of her and then shot her in front of her family. And then they killed the rest of the kids. These are not regular enemies.
Okay, I just don't believe it. It's kind of shocking, but there's no pictures of these things. This sounds like atrocity propaganda, like the one. There's a number of these where the babies were cut out of the wombs, like Charles Manson type stuff. Again, I don't find it very believable. They could just silence all the criticism with a little bit of evidence. That's all they have to do. Lauren Witzke has said something pretty interesting about this whole situation. I don't know if she's joking or not. Turns out she's the producer of Stu Peters. She's involved with him. But she suggested that Christians should actually be able to take control of the area where Jesus was crucified, that it's a Christian Holy Land. I don't think these individuals are serious. Everything is just it's the Poe world order parody of extremism. Their views are untenable, but they're also just this is just so unbelievable. I get a lot of Duper's Delight vibes out of Lauren Witzke, but take a listen. I feel like she's just trying to
I
be.
think that this would be a novel concept. You know, maybe the citizens of Israel should be very careful with the exercise of like a religious claim to the land.
Yeah.
Because there may be others that have a religious claim to the land.
Well, I mean, that's where Christianity was born, was on that cross on Calvary. We should, Christians, Christian conquering. I don't know. But,
She actually laughed. Christian conquering, and she starts laughing. Like, I don't think she's serious.
They claim that, like, oh, yeah, of course it's a holy land, but how come we don't have a right to it?
How come we don't have a right to it? Fascinating. Okay, now, she also has some interesting opinions that I kind of somewhat agree with on the shape of the earth. Just because I don't agree with her on everything, just because I think she's a troll and a grifter and an opportunist and a provocateur, doesn't mean that we don't have some commonalities. And she was on Casual Gamer talking about the shape of the world, and I found her perspective kind of interesting here. Almost.
The 2020 Delaware GOP Senate candidate goes on to claim that she is a flat earther and doesn't believe anything unless she personally sees it.
They hide the flat earth. They want you just to think you're a globe floating around in space, nothing special about you. You were an accident. When God intentionally put us here, he intentionally created us, and he loves us, and he made us just like them. So that is what I have to say about that. That is why I lean towards more flat earth than I do round earth. Also, I haven't seen it. I don't trust anything I don't see anymore. If I haven't seen it myself, I don't believe it. It's a lie, because everything that they've told me is a lie.
Okay, well, again, I don't make the religious case for it. However, they're lying about everything else. Why are you going to trust them on the one thing that you can't test in any way? Especially when what they presented you with is accompanied by a lot of bunk. I mean, look, the moon landing's fake. So there's a strike against their claim to truth. Anyway, that's Lauren Witzke, comedian, troll. I think she's a Poe. I really do. Although that was somewhat sensible. Now, I don't know why this is news. This is Isaac Cappy, or an Isaac Cappy fan, a QAnoner. Apparently, Lady Gaga's possessed by the devil. So is Taylor Swift these days. A lot of people are pointing out how Taylor Swift is just a full-blown Satanist now. Here's Lady Gaga going into demonic possession. Now, first thing I want to point out, Return of Cappy, Isaac's Army. This guy's a QAnoner, has 133,000 followers. Calling out all things cabal, corruption, satanic, expose the deception. So again, this is Isaac's Army, Isaac Cappy. Big channel. Now here he is saying, is Lady Gaga even human? And in this video, her eyes turn white. Now, the thing about it is, it's obviously edited after the fact. Okay, there's just no question about it. It's really bad. But this guy doesn't know or doesn't care. Nor do the people who share it. Jake Sully says, still have to give the demons props for hitting the choreography. Alex says, as a musician myself, I never understood why you'd make a deal with the devil. Fortune and fame doesn't seem worth it in the long run. Might as well quit music if you're that unsure. But they take it for granted. This person says, the earth is of the devil. These people are the ones who say they don't believe in God. It's in the eyes. There's more. There's more. This guy has studied demonology in his life. These are demonic eyes. This is how they look in reality. I don't think this is edited. Sold her soul for a minute of fame. She used to be beautiful with great talent, but now she's possessed. Now, going back up to the very top of the post, turns out the video is edited. It was made last year. You can find the original right there if you care to look. So Isaac Cappy's army has been fact-checked. They just go with their bias confirmation. Truth be damned. Never let facts get in the way of good narrative, ever. Diana South says, Witzke believes in Christ. She said she never saw him or argument about flat versus ball. She's never seen herself. Okay. Now that's a great point. Her argument for not believing in the globe is she's never seen it. So what's her argument for taking other things on faith if she hasn't, quote, seen them? Very good question there. I mean, good point there. Because I've been making this distinction between belief versus knowing, and how there is a point where to be a globe believer, you have to take a leap of faith in your chosen priesthood, your secular priesthood, whereas the God believer is also in a similar position where they have to take it on faith because you don't have the view. It's too big, or you can't see it in your carnal body, whatever it is. It's too transcendent. But it's a faith thing. I think faith is the problem when it's in a lot of this stuff. It's like malware for the mind, where it's like, oh, just trust me, or ignore this contradiction. There's a little bit of gaslighting built into it. Like, do we need to have faith when you can just go ahead and, verify? Let's just have some kind of basis in facts. Why do we have to have something that's out of our sight that we have to trust somebody else's hearsay or seasay, second-hand accounts? It's really annoying to me when it comes to the fake space stuff, how you often see astronauts in the space station taking pictures of the Earth from space, but you never see their point of view. You see the camera they're holding, and you see pictures that are claimed to have been taken by that camera, but you can't prove it. You never actually see from their point of view, and the reason why is you would see backstage. And they say, how was space? Like you go on a vacation, you come back, how was it? And you give them some details. Like, how was space? Oh, it was so beautiful. Could you give me some more details? It's always so vague. Because it's a sim. Donald Trump promises 2024 will be a, quote, monster. This is from Newsweek. 2024 will be a monster. I think this is more of a tie into this general theme, this Godzilla Kraken theme. Now this is interesting. I didn't see this one coming. This is an old story. If you remember the story of the Central Park 5, there was a story about this jogger who was attacked, and you had these 5 individuals who were caught up in this thing. And I guess it was like they were convicted in the court of public opinion, but they were later exonerated. And Donald Trump really led the charge to having them all executed. I think he even took out some very expensive ads to have the Central Park 5 put to death. It was a big cause for him at one point. Anyway, exonerated Central Park 5 member Yusef Salaam will win New York City Council seat. Yeah, he won a New York City Council seat. Donald Trump once called for his execution. Now he will be on the New York City Council. Interesting twist there. Wrongly convicted Central Park 5 wins primary for City Council in New York. Very interesting story there. It says he and 4 others were blamed and imprisoned for the rape and beating of a white jogger in 1989. This attack drew national attention, including that of Donald Trump, then a New York-based real estate magnate. He took out a newspaper ad calling on New York to reinstitute the death penalty. Fascinating twist here. And what was sent to me by Mr. Trustworthy was Trump's racist reputation stems from his reaction to this fake rape. Okay, fascinating take there. Old story, but they brought this character back out, and yeah, it probably was fake. Atrocious. It's all atrocity propaganda. Tom Wax Bottles Jones says, faith is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen, not taking someone's word for it. Try harder if you're going to badmouth things. Sure. Well, what's your basis for believing that man landed on the moon? You know, you're having a great deal of trust. You're putting blind faith in media. And what I'm saying is that faith in religion makes sense. Like, I understand why you have faith in your religion. But having faith in media is sort of like, it's a wrongful appropriation of the religious impulse. Like, people need to believe, I'm sure, because they are looking for something beyond. But that's being steered into the TV screen. It's being steered into this fake cosmology. So I'm not bashing faith when it's attached to religion, and I'm not even bashing belief. I don't care if you believe you're on a ball. I don't care if you believe in dinosaurs, whether they're on Noah's Ark or not. But I don't think that religious people have a moral high ground at all, just because they have some book they reference and they believe in it super duper intensely. It's like, okay, good for you. I'm not convinced of anything right now that I don't have any evidence for. I'm not an atheist, though. Tom Wax Bottle Jones says, I don't have faith in religion. Faith is, okay, well, whatever. Whatever you, what I'm saying is that you would agree with me at a minimum that faith means you don't have evidence for it. If you had evidence, it wouldn't be faith. You would know it. You don't have faith that you're listening to this live stream right now, like you're here physically experiencing it. You have evidence. You're feeling it. You're hearing it. It's present. There's no leap of faith. It's not something that you can't detect or sense that you're just hoping exists. I mean, we're talking about objective reality versus this augmented version of reality where a lot of it you can't test, and you're wholly reliant on secondhand accounts. You're reliant on trusting people who saw it because you didn't. And what I'm also pointing out too is that the belief-based worldview is really the opposite of scientific. It's like you're listening to a lot of science or scientists telling you stuff, but if you're not testing it, it's not really even technically science. It's more of a belief system. But I don't really get into the religious topic because it's not really monolithic enough. You can't talk about Christianity as a singular thing necessarily, because everybody treats it differently. You have different denominations, and then you have a lot of people who don't go to church, but who consider themselves believers in it in their own way, and it's very much, it's almost too subjective. And then the biblical flat earth thing, I don't even think that it's relevant. I don't think the Bible is necessary when you're talking about whether the earth is stationary or whether it moves. I think these are things that need to be in the realm of the objective, in what we can actually measure. And when the other side only has bad science fiction, well, you shouldn't respond with old fiction or mythology. You should be responding with more information. Information that they're not privy to, that they're not including, information that maybe hasn't even been accessed yet. We need more research. That's why I'm like shape agnostic. I'm like, I'm not going to say I know it's this because the Bible. I'm not going to say I know it's this because the scientists say and it's on TV as such. I'm going to go with the information. And right now, we don't have enough information to come to a conclusion. Because yes, the information we've been given is bad. The moon rocks are petrified wood. And until you can figure that out, you can't build on it. You know, you can't build on, it's a house of cards. You can't like, okay, we're moving up into space, going to Mars next. I'm sorry, you can't go to Mars because you cheated on the moon landing. It's like you don't get to go to college until you pass high school. You didn't get past the moon. Start over. And then, of course, the people who are really devoted to debating against the flat earth never touch anything related to movie magic. Because it wasn't science that got us to the moon, it was movie magic. But they look at it through an entirely different lens. Ollie Goering says, I think the word faith is French for action or work. It should be spelled Faye. Fascinating. I'll have to look into it, the etymology of it. My whole point of it, though, is I think that the people are conditioned, the massified mind, the mainstream mediated mind, are conditioned to believe too much without requiring any kind of a factual basis. And I think they're absorbing a lot of what I consider to be contemporary myths. Like I'll say 9/11 is a contemporary myth. If you think people really died, you don't understand 9/11. And if that sounds crazy to me, it's like, well, then you're just uninformed about what media is and how movie magic can be included in the reportage quite readily all the time. And this is not even, it's wag the dog. It always has been. Okay, let's move on here. Fakeologist said, I need to take a look at a show called Jury Duty. It's a TV series, 2023. I haven't looked into it yet. An American reality hoax sitcom television series created by Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupninsky about a fake jury trial. It stars Ronald Gladden as a juror who's unaware of the hoax. Okay, I'm going to have to check this out. The series chronicles the inner workings of a jury trial in the U.S. through the eyes of a juror, Ronald Gladden, a solar contractor from San Diego who's unaware that his jury duty summons was not official, and everyone in the courtroom is an actor. Everything that happens inside and outside the courtroom is planned. This is interesting. I will have to take a look at this. There's 8 episodes in one season. I'll binge watch it. This is what you would call an immersive illusion. We've spoken quite a bit about Space Cadets. And Space Cadets is another one of these reality TV shows that was predicated on a hoax. It's like, let's do a hoax where we convince a lot of people that they're going into low Earth orbit. So they recruited a number of people. And if you look at and this is the most expensive television prank in human history. This is similar. But Space Cadets was a show where they convinced a group of people that they were in space. But they had to go through, I think, a few different processes to make sure they got the right kinds of people who were gullible, who didn't really know that much about space, who were uninhibited. But what really, I think, what makes this thing work, and this is something that we can apply to all of these different psychological operations, is like, how did they make this work? How did you manage to fool these 5 people and not have them see through the illusion? How does this thing maintain itself when it's so obviously fake? And basically it has to do with the dynamics of the liars mixed in, the actual deceivers who are pretending to be among the cadets, who are just pretending to be like the jurors in the other show. So in this case, there were 5 actors mixed in with 5 dupes. And so this 1-to-1 ratio made it very easy to keep the contestants from talking to each other. It made it very easy to prevent conspiracy theories, like what we're doing here. We're sitting here talking about glitches in the Matrix, and oh, look, you notice this too. Oh, look what I've noticed. And we put it together, and we get a big picture, and we're like, hey, look, maybe this is all fake. Maybe we're on some kind of a movie set. But as long as they can keep you separated and keep you in different compartments where you're being misled by insiders, you would never really know. This is, again, Space Cadets. The audition process involved the cadets being chosen based on, here we go, eliminating anybody who served in the armed forces, anybody who had a significant interest in science fiction, Psychological tests. They wanted people who were suggestible and who would conform to groupthink. That's interesting. People who would conform to groupthink, being asked to dance blindfolded to gauge inhibition levels. So they wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be dealing with people who would be too inhibited, who would question things too deeply. They wanted people pleasers, crowd pleasers, and they certainly got it. But the point I want to make here is that it only worked because you had 5 liars mixed in. And these liars were able to keep these other 5 from figuring anything out. And it reminds me of how you have influencers in the truther community. And these influencers are there to keep the general population from unifying as one with all of their ideas and putting it all together as a big picture. It keeps it fragmented. Resolution. The show's ending on the last day involved they dropped the walls. And these people all cried, by the way. They cried. They thought they were really going to be in space. Early viewer reactions to the show contained disbelief that this outlandish joke could be pulled off. Particularly questioned was how weightlessness would be presented. Interesting. How do they pull that off? They told the cadets that they had, quote, gravity generators built into the ship. That's all it took. Oh, gravity generators. I was wondering about this. Like, let's say they do pull off some kind of fake Mars base under Denver or under China or wherever it happens to be, some deep underground military base that looks like a Truman Show, but it's Mars. And they ship a bunch of gullible people there, fake space travel using hyperloops. You land in your Mars base and you're walking around and you're like, this feels like Earth. How are they going to be able to convince people that they're on Mars? And they'll probably say gravity generators. The shuttle simulator was in a soundproofed hangar. The shuttle's name was Earth Orbiter 1. The simulator was basically like a amusement park ride. But the psychological aspect here, and this will probably apply to the show that Fakeologist recommended, it raises the issue of how immersive illusions can convince average people over a period of time, especially when reinforced as a part of a group of believers and authority figures, men in white coats, where they can be moved into an alternate universe. The actor on the mission said it was easy to let himself believe it was genuine. Trying to remind himself that it was a hoax consciously would disorient him. Despite the fact that he was aware of the hoax, he later said that for about a month after the show, he still felt like he was on camera all the time, and it was quite disturbing. Parallels can be drawn to the supposed group experiment in Big Brother, which Space Cadet draws upon, in wider terms of propaganda, subliminal advertising, and the consensus nature of reality. So a couple of points here. Consensus nature of reality. The world stage is an internalized model of the world that adheres to their consensus, or their model they create for us to create a consensus around. So it's not what you perceive, it's what's on the screen. It doesn't include what you can debunk, it's what's on the screen. Now, the other part of it too is how a group of people believing the same thing being reinforced by authority figures. This is kind of the interesting part to me, is like half the people in the room are actors. So you're looking around and you're like, well, half the people believe it. One other person adds to the mix and they believe it. It's like, okay, it creates a false consensus. It's like astroturfing, fake grassroots. Astroturfing works. I pointed out that big QAnon channel, Isaac Cappy, with 1 million subs, and he's just posting eminently debunkable BS. Well, he probably paid for those subs, or the people who manage these big channels, whoever it is, agencies, corporations, just bored people with a lot of money who want to pay to shill this garbage, they are more or less creating an illusion of a consensus, and it works. And to the point earlier, we were talking about religious faith and this new priesthood, and this is an example of it. These people in the space simulator had plenty of faith in people in white coats, not priests, but the new secular priests of the Church of Scientism. This is basically the same thing. It's the same dynamic. And what I'm suggesting is having faith in your worldview as presented from these types. Yeah, sure, you can trust them because they know more about the science and everything, but you might end up in some kind of a alternate universe. This alternate universe thing is kind of interesting. Now, there's more on here. There's on this Wikipedia page about the psychological aspect of it, and it's definitely worth looking into, conformity experiments, especially looking back at 2020. And I would contend that 2020 was spread by, as in the ideology and the whole program itself, by fashion. Fashion is what spread the thing. Peer pressure. You go out in public, you don't know anybody there, but there's a unified message being conveyed. Everybody's wearing the same new costume, and if you're the odd person out, it's a little awkward. And it's constant pressure, constant pressure. And as more people adopt it, this fashion statement, the sense of compromising and giving in and all this stuff kind of fades. You kind of lose the idea that you're going to be chastised by this other people who are still resisting. It's irresistible at a point, and it's just a big takeover, more or less. Like you might have said, I'm not going to get a cell phone. I don't want to be tracked. I'm sure a lot of people here may have said that. I knew people who said they didn't want to be followed around and tracked by Big Brother. And now they confess their innermost thoughts to Big Brother every second of every day. It's a mind reading device. All right, let's catch up on a couple of things here. We're not quite running out of time, but I've got about 15 minutes in case anybody else wants to call in. Okay, let's move on. I wanted to get to this America. No, actually, it's a shooter in Panama, but he's an American. This American anti-environmentalist terrorist who killed a couple of greenies there on the street. The green movement is another one of these things that is, in many ways, I think it's going to be spread by peer pressure and consensus. It's all virtue signaling. Like recycling, to me, if you're recycling, you're genuflecting before the altar to the green god. Diana South says, peer pressure caused us to believe the ball earth. Yeah, well, that and the lack of an alternative. I mean, you notice how people are generally believers in the religion they were raised in. It's like, why would that be? It's like, I didn't even know what Mormons were until I was already confirmed in the religion that I was in. And I really didn't know the intricacies of these different denominations. And I didn't realize how divisive it was. Like, for example, until I got on YouTube, I didn't realize that a lot of Christians don't consider Catholics Christians, which is just perplexing to me. That's why I'm saying it's not a monolith. You can't find any agreement, which is not a bad thing. Like, there's never going to be a religious war coming from the Christians because there is no monolithic group of Christians. It's just too divided. There's too much competition. It's not unified. And then Christian nationalism is sort of this new religion that has come up attached to MAGAism, but it's not even a mainstreamable thing. It's almost parody, and a lot of it's just pandering, and it's very cynical. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Oh, by the way, one more thing. The dominant world religion of today is the MSM. I don't mean that as an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. I'm not joking. It's like quite literally, if you look at religion as a regimented worldview handed down to the believers from the knowers, the priesthood, who have the perspective, the view, the truth, and a monopoly. It's a truth monopoly. Well, religions have all been fighting over who has the truth monopoly, who's the truest, who's got the right God. Well, you know who won? Mass media. Gaia, the globe. That is the dominant God construct, and you are tithing, you're paying, you're recycling in various ways. You're pretty much showing that you are indeed a follower, or at least, wittingly or not, you're in the church of Gaia. And moreover, in 2020, the entire world kneeled to the replacement devil, which is COVID, the pandemic. The pandemic is the new devil. Like insofar as the new God construct is the globe, and it's an angry globe, and it's going to flood us because of our activities, the devil is the virus. Not the virus specifically, it's the pandemic. The pandemic was the devil that the atheists could believe in. And it's tied into this replacement for sin, which is the virus. Duas Impera says MSM is the living Bible. Yeah, the way I describe it is this. Because the new truth monopoly is the MSM. It is global. It is unified. Every nation that has a space program has accepted space as the new heaven. They all accept global warming stuff. And that's a major one. The reason why environmentalism is so big is that this God construct and its growing wrath at man is one of the main features of this religion. And the MSM is the new Bible in the sense that it is the thing that gives us the worldview that we're all going to agree upon, but they're in the process of censoring and excluding and getting rid of the Apocrypha, the non-canonical, the heretical stuff. They're purifying it right now. That's what X is about, and Disease X. I've talked about this before, how Elon Musk is reprising the role of this Constantine for the world stage right now. And Constantine had a vision of a glowing cross. And he's like, I'm going to unify the empire under this sign. Then Musk puts the glowing cross on his building, and he's like, this is the everything app. And X is being pointed at as the source of this new problem, which is, why I call it Disease X. And the problem is going to bring about a reaction, which we're having right now, to the misinformation flood, especially now with this war propaganda and nobody can agree on what's real. But the solution is going to be, we have to censor the web. We have to lock down the internet and quarantine certain areas. That's definitely where it's leading. So I'm looking at, again, mainstream media is like your Bible, but it's almost like New Testament, Old Testament. For example, the New Testament is considered to have relevance, and some of it's yet to be fulfilled according to the way many people see it, the end times notion. So in other words, it's not like it's all in the past. It's new. So I look at the MSM as something like akin to a New Testament, whereas history is the Old Testament. It's the settled stuff. From the Big Bang to the dinosaurs, the mass extinction, evolution. Yeah, that would be like the Old Testament, the origin story that we all accept. And there are more parallels here, I think, when you look at how the angel has been replaced and supplanted by the alien. And you'll notice that the right wing, who still believe in sin, who lean towards the idealized past, whereas the right wing's idealized past, MAGA, religion, Christianity still, whereas the left is godless. They believe in science, transhumanism. They believe in virus, but not sin. But they don't believe in God, but they believe in aliens. They believe in aliens as possibly perfected man from the future. Whereas on the right, they see aliens as demons. MTG has even said as much. But this is a fascinating divide here. But why would an alien represent perfected man from the perspective of the believers in scientism? Probably because they have ascended above the world. There's this ascension idea. They're transcendent. They're not limited by the world, and that's a huge part of it. But the other part of it is they're grays. They don't have any distinctions to fight over. They've basically ascended and transcended. Like, the astronauts talk about the overview effect. They say when they're up in space, they look at the Earth. They no longer see nations. They just see one, and they need to save the planet. We're all one. Well, aliens are all one. They're gray. One race. Gender, none. No facial expressions. No individuals. They're just drones, basically. But yes, aliens are a replacement. And this was actually pretty evident if you look at the movie, I think it was Asteroid City, where they do a prayer, "Dear aliens who art in space." I'm like, wow, that's exactly as they see it. Okay, let's continue. What do we have here? Oh, this is an interesting one. Jay Diggs posted it this morning. Eddie Bravo put out a provocative video, and his first single, it's called Hook Thieves. Now, I watched it, and I was a little taken aback by the video itself. I mean, it's really well done. And the video is a scene of Mexican migrants being confronted by Border Patrol. I don't want to give a spoiler, but I am going to share the video. I can't play the whole thing, obviously, but I'll put a link below. But I was just pointing out when I was looking at this thing, I was like, it's shockingly well done as far as the actual the violence and the execution of it. But it has some footage here, and I'm wondering if it's going to have some kind of a blowback later, because what it has is some incident, whether it's a false flag or not. It looks like almost like this guy here could be a white nationalist, but it looks like he starts shooting at the Border Patrol and it starts this massacre. Anyway, it's an Eddie Bravo song, Hook Thieves. I'll play a few seconds of it. Okay, it's in the link in the chat below. I put the link there. You can check it out for yourself. Pretty good special effects. You know, if only Sandy Hooks had special effects like that. Anyway, it's Eddie Bravo's video for Hook Thieves. You can see here, actually, here's a still shot where Eddie actually gets shot 6 times in the torso. Squibs, very squibby. Anyway, interesting video, kind of shocking stuff. I'll have to watch it a few more times. I kind of get the idea that it's like an instigation. The guy who does the shooting doesn't look like he's an immigrant. Zelensky meets up with Pete Buttigieg and does a little handshake. This is just pathetic at this point. I'm like, maybe he needs to go on Cameo.com and maybe by green screen you can just pay $500 and get your hand shaken by, you know, Zelensky. It's all a photo op. This is like it's insane. And I look at all these celebrities running up there and doing a photo op with them, and it's almost like I don't know what you call it. Like they want to be seen with the popular person. It's Sean Penn was really the worst at this, but like literally nobody cares anymore. The public attention span, again, it's like a cat chasing a dot from a laser pen. Brock Riddick says, blue pill versus red pill. If you take both pills, only the red one will take effect. You cannot undo it. The inverse isn't true. Yeah, I see a lot of these red pillars out there, and I'm like, look, both of them have the same manufacturer. I don't know why people are still talking about red pills like it's anything other than Mentanol. Name one, quote, red pill thing that isn't part of the contrived counter narrative to keep you in the political horseshoe. Like, I don't think there are any. The only things that take you outside of it, that bring you into objective truth, would be the white pills. The things that are fake being, you know, called out. This is an interesting one. Violet posted a meme, The Dark Knight Rises, and has Batman holding a COVID ball. And above it is the burning bat. Now, there's a couple of things about this, and this is just kind of an interesting mashup. There's an article here, What the Pandemic Can Teach Us About Nuclear Threats. And it's got the COVID ball with a mushroom cloud on it. Now, if you remember from back in 2020, when I saw this symbol, the very first thing I said was, hey, this looks like the Earth covered in gray smoke with mushroom clouds all over it. And these mushroom clouds are all red mushroom clouds, meaning communists, Russia, China, something like that. It looks like World War III. Because the idea of World War III has always been mushroom clouds going off everywhere. Therefore, when I saw the COVID-19 symbol, I said, hey, this is the symbol of World War III. This is the the icon of it, and it's like perfect as a representation of it because it shows that there's a ground zero pretty much everywhere. And this ties in to the Economist cover where it says the new shape of Chinese influence, which I take to mean the novel shape of Chinese influenza, and it has a globe covered in spikes, but only China's red, not the whole thing yet. But now, here's the other tie-in here that I think is just mind-blowing. This is definitely not an eerie coincidence. This is planned. So when Dark Knight came out in 2012, there's a scene where Batman says, if you're working alone, wear a mask. And after he tells this to his companion, he holds out a spiked ball. And if you look on the screen, it looks like a COVID ball. Only it's black, but it's a COVID ball. Then he throws it, and it creates a mushroom cloud. He says, count to 5 and throw this. And he throws it, and you have a mushroom cloud. So I'm thinking, that's interesting. Is it a reference to, I don't know, 2025? There's a clue in here. But the fact that Batman says, you don't wear a mask for you, you wear a mask to protect the ones that you love, comes out in this movie before he holds a COVID ball, is just more indication of how planned in advance this stuff is. And then you could also tie it all in to the symbol of the burning bat. And the burning bat is the phoenix. So I'll go ahead and play a clip here. This is from Dark Knight Rises. If you're working alone, wear a mask. We fast forward past a little bit of the fighting. So this character who's very Robin-like says that he doesn't feel like he needs to wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
I'm not afraid to be seen standing up to these guys.
Yeah, wear a mask.
If you're working alone, wear a mask.
I'm not afraid to be seen standing up to these guys.
The mask's not for you. It's to protect the people you care about.
The mask is not for you. It's to protect the people you care about. And then he shows the COVID ball. What are the odds? And this is, again, the movie that has the burning bat phoenix on the back. And the phoenix, the burn back, or burn down, build back better, that whole thing. The phoenix symbol has been a huge thing since 2020. And the bat as a phoenix was foreshadowing. And then he throws it. This is the next thing, though. We've already gone through the COVID. So now he throws the COVID ball. He says count down from 5. And that has the mushroom cloud.
Count to 5, then throw.
There you have it, mushroom cloud. And this is a Christopher Nolan film. So you can connect this with Oppenheimer. He filmed Oppenheimer, the nuke. Here is a mushroom cloud. Again, the COVID foreshadowing. What are the odds that there is not a foreshadowing to a nuke to follow COVID? And Oppenheimer was his latest movie. So I think this is another indication that we're about to see some kind of fake nuke really soon. And the movie's out. You know, I was like, it's not going to happen before Oppenheimer. An IMAX film that was 11 miles long, weighs 600 pounds. Baking Brad says, have you seen the Pentaverate? Lots to unpack there. Yeah, actually, they stole a few ideas from us. Like Musk has the underground Hyperloop, and we talked about this as being like this way that they are going to fake space travel, and they kind of stole that. They have the Illuminati wearing like these plague masks, kind of a Penguinati thing that we've had. But anyway, I'm not saying they stole it. I mean, we're getting our ideas from the same sources. I have seen it. I'm kind of annoyed with Mike Myers' kind of lowbrow, puerile sense of humor, but there are a number of things in there that are pretty interesting. Pretty funny in a few ways, but maybe I'll have to watch it again. Violet says, also the nuke at the end, Batman death fake. I'd like some clarification there. But I'll put a link if you want to watch this clip. If you're working alone, wear a mask. I think it foreshadows the coming nuke that Christopher Nolan... And did Christopher Nolan know he was going to be doing Oppenheimer 10 years after that? No. Or yeah, I'd say probably yeah, actually. Totally an insider. The contemporary Kubrick, according to many. Okay, we covered the elderly American in Panama killing the environmentalists, and we're wondering if the environmentalists actually care or if they approve of it. Gaia approves. Gaia is in full support of it. Christopher Nolan's movies, though, are definitely part of the big metascript. We talk about who the metascriptors are, and whenever you look at any of their movies, you have to keep in mind that the movies are part of a continuous whole, even though they're separated by years, and it's often given away in the actors. That's why I was talking about Leonardo DiCaprio as the face of the Titanic, and at the same time being the face of Don't Look Up, where the Earth is the Titanic and the comet is the iceberg. So this is a pretty interesting bit of predictive programming. Violet says Dark Knight Rises. Oh, Bane uses the weapon, makes a mushroom cloud in the ocean. Batman puts it in the water. Everyone thinks he's dead, but he's not. See, that's incredible there. Because at the end of the latest Batman movie, on 11/6, an inverted 9/11, Batman is in Gotham, and Gotham's underwater, and he's up to his waist in water, holding a torch, which would create the reflection for the 9/11, giving you 11/6. But fascinating. I don't have any more time, unfortunately, but we will be back tomorrow, same time, if not earlier. Space wars have begun. World's first space battle. Israel's Air Force defeats aerial threat beyond Earth's atmosphere. Israel's Air Force has successfully shot down ballistic missiles outside of the atmosphere, 62 miles up, so past the Kármán line. So space wars have begun. So that's something that we've been kind of expecting. And I think the next thing is going to be the mushroom cloud. Now, when he said count to 5 and then throw this, it made me think 5 years from 2020, maybe 2025 is when they detonate the thing. And it also makes sense considering that the new Joker movie, which has already been tied into Trump, like they were filming a scene for Joker 2 on when he was arraigned on 4/4. Well, the new Joker movie doesn't come out until 10/4 of 2024. Mark N. Foley says, would Trump being re-elected be like the Dark Knight Rising? Yes. Yes. And in fact, there's a scene, I think it's in one of the comic books, there was this pit that Batman jumps out of. And they talk about this pit thing, how the only way to jump out of it is to be so afraid that you have the extra adrenaline to pull yourself out of it. Let me see if I can find the title of it. I'm not a big reader of these Batman comics, but I've been looking into these. These are contemporary myths, and these characters are all telling this big story, and there's various ways they represent him. Batman right, Joker left, Batman order, Joker chaos. Oh, it's the Lazarus Pit, I think it is. There's some kind of story about Batman in a pit, and some have correlated it to the abyss. And of course, the idea of Trump rising, Dark Knight Rising, absolutely, because Trump has been associated with Batman in the lore. Lean Dion says King Dawn is the mayor in Batman. Dark Maga, right. And remember, Maga means witch. And how many times have you heard Trump say, this is a witch hunt, this is a witch hunt, this is a witch hunt? Maga means witch, just as Magus is like wizard. And the Scarlet Hat, America the Fallen, Whore of Babylon, Scarlet Woman across her brow, Babylon the Fallen, America is Babylon. There's so much symbolism packed into this, and then you have Trump launching his campaign in Waco. Waco, American Apocalypse, gets released the day before on Netflix, and he calls it the final battle. I mean, this story is rich. It's really rich. It's all intricate. It's all tied together. It's not cherry picking. We are basing everything that we state here with our assessment on this view that you can't make any meaningful distinctions between the infotainment news and the entertainment media because it's part of a unified whole. It's monolithic. Dinah South says if Trump is reelected, had a fatal head wound of state wound, then he is resurrected. Right, you could look at it symbolically like that. And it's all about the symbols and these characters that they overlay on top of these world stage characters. And I think the Trump Napoleon thing is also kind of interesting. Trump's exile, his political exile, and Trump, of course, being associated with the Terminator, of course, being associated with the Destroyer. And a Destroyer is another reference to Oppenheimer's nuke. And of course, Destroyer is Apollyon, Revelation 9:11, or Abaddon, or a bad dawn. Donald Trump, a very bad dawn. But Apollyon, of course, is Napoleon, which we were discussing these things. And yeah, it seems to me that he doesn't have to literally have a head wound the way these stories work, but they have to meet all the plot points whenever they're basing someone's life on this archetypal story or borrowing. And that's what we're seeing here. Like I talk about how Nimrod corresponds to Jeff Bezos, or Constantine or Tony Stark correspond to Musk. And there's a lot of antichristy stuff all over Trump. And so there's a lot of people looking at this, including us here, because there's a ton of material supporting the idea that there's going to be some kind of a, quote, head wound with Donald Trump. And how many times have you seen Donald Trump symbolically killed in various movies, in various commercials, music videos? It's actually pretty common. You got the F Donald Trump song, and then he's got the slash through his eye. It's crazy. It's like there's more predictive programming for that than for the Twin Towers falling. Scoop here from Honest Reporting. What were AP, Reuters, and CNN and New York Times doing in Gaza on October the 7th? Coincidence, or were they part of the plan? A news report about the images that came out on October the 7th is raising questions. Okay, this is interesting. Raising questions about the actions of photographers employed by CNN, Reuters, and New York Times, and the AP. The charge is the photographers were embedded with the terrorists. So what's more likely? That they were embedded with the terrorists, or that this is Wag the dog, that they are creating the story? That they're creating the story, that they are producing the story. Why do you think the journalists are there? What's more likely? That they're embedded with the bad guys? No, they are producing the PSYOP. All right, we'll continue this tomorrow, likely the same time, if not a little bit earlier. Thanks again for all of your calls. I had to delete the first call. No offense to the caller, just that we are on our second strike on this channel, and this strike, actually both strikes, expire in a week. And if we can last 1 week, this channel's in the clear. But if we lose it, we lose like 10 different channels because they're all connected to the same account. We've been through this too many times, so I'm playing it smart. But anyway, archives will go out via email. Thanks again. And Violet says Batman gets his head cracked by Bane, and he puts him in the hole, forced to watch the nuke on TV, but Batman gets out. And he comes. That's great concept there. Skill says Israel-Gaza conflict is Wag the dog. Mark N. Foley says great show. Shannon Jones says great show. Thank you. Appreciate it. And this is One-Eyed Jack and the Shells. Death to the ball. Sign up for the newsletter. I'll put a link below. And of course, any of the links that we discussed tonight, you can find at minds.com/Infinite Plane Society. And the truth of it is, you can go back through that feed and pretty much in reverse go through everything we've ever talked about from the very beginning. I've been very consistently posting there because it's a safe space. There's never going to be any need to censor minds.com, and I S post there, but these are all puzzle pieces that we discuss. Okay, One-Eyed Jack and the Shells, Death to the Ball.
It's death to the ball. It's death to the ball. It's death to wish you